Welcome to the January 2026 Inspiration Collaboration Design Team Mystery Envelope Challenge. And this month, I got to send out the challenge. It was to create a scrapbook layout using cute as a bug papers and die cuts and include all the following elements: at least 3 different bugs, 1 interactive element, layer it up with 5 paper or cardstock layers, and a playful title and include a pun or a phrase. So here are all of the 6x6 papers I sent the girls. Everyone got different 4x6 and 3x4 memories and more cutouts from the paper as well. And then I had a lot of fun filling this with some fun things. So I have these adorable little ladybug and dots that came from the Ladybug Garden epoxy shapes. And then I took this paper and I die cut a whole bunch of those little critters, but the back is absolutely adorable. Some of them did not have dies to go with it, and I included some cloud cover ribbon. So let's get started and see what we can create with this. So I have some adorable little pictures of my granddaughter Kinsley. She's about 3.5 in these pictures, and these were from preschool, and those are what I'm wanting to make a layout. And so I am going to start with 2 sheets of cardstock that is the light side of cloud cover. And I think this will make a good basis so that it's kind of like the sky is what I'm envisioning. And part of this challenge was to use 5 layers of cardstock. So I think 5 layers is going to be kind of hard, but if I map my pictures, that will give me a layer. And the back of where all those die cut bugs were was this darling, almost floral and grass type of print. So I'm going to cut these at 4x12, and honestly, I'm going to figure out which ones I'm keeping based on the bugs that are on the other side and what I still want to die cut. So I'll figure out which one I want, and I will use the other 2 for that darling little daisy print. And then I'm going to take a water brush, and I am just wetting the very edge of that 4x12 strip of paper, and I'm going to tear it because like grass and land doesn't look like perfectly even. And so I think I want about the same thing on both sides. So I'm going to try to do approximately an even border. That way, one page to the next will sort of match up and they can be about the same height since it's not exact. And I figure out which 2 match better, and that's how I decide my left and right. Next, I bring in some cardstock, and I start with Old Olive, and I can use either the front or the back, and I think I'm going to trim it down and see if I can layer that up, and that can add towards those 5 layers of cardstock and paper. So I'm cutting these at 5-inch strips, and I'll see how I like those underneath my other strip of paper. But then I'm going to cut this other tiny strip that's left in half so that I have another layer if I want to use the 2 sides. And then I'm going to bring in my garden green cardstock, and I will cut it at like 4.5, 4 3/4. I'm not sure which I trimmed it at. I want it to be more than that 4 inches like the original layer. And then I'm going to take my water brush again, and I'm going to do the same technique where I'm going to tear toward myself to expose that white core, and I'm going to save that other little strip of paper. Okay, now you can see, I can see both sides. I think I might actually like this a little bit better than that Old Olive with the paper. And so I'll do this again, and it'll be for the other side of my layout. And I don't want to throw anything out. So I'm going to save this other strip, turn it upside down, and I will layer that underneath. So let's kind of adhere this all together. So I'm going to start with the light side of the garden green cardstock, and I'm going to put a line of glue up about 3/8 of an inch or so, and I'm going to take that dark side of the garden green and layer it up about a 1/4 inch from the bottom. And then I will layer on the DSP over top of that, making sure that I can see the 2 layers of garden green at the bottom and a little bit of the garden green sticking out at the top. And it's meant to be uneven and a little bit raggedy, so it's okay if you see more of the garden green in some spots and less in others. And then I just line that up flush against the bottom of that light side of the cloud cover cardstock that I have for my base. And I do the same thing again on the other side. I just go ahead and glue that light side down to the cloud cover. Oh, that's a tongue twister. And then I'm going to take and glue down the dark side of the garden green about a 1/4 of an inch strip up. And you see how I'm not wasting anything, including that strip. And this will add to my 5 layers. So right there I have 3 layers, and this paper will make 4. So I think if I map my pictures, it's easy to get 5 different layers of cardstock within this layout. And it certainly gives it some dimension, and it really adds to accentuating all of those different colors that are in the bugs and the little things that I have going on. I really want to use this 4x6 down in the left corner, and everybody has a different one. And I'm deciding about laying out these pictures, and I really like them laid across like this, but the more that I look at it, I think that I need like one of them to stand out, like one of them to be larger. And I enlarged all of these to 5x7. I need something for my picture frames anyways. And so I think I'm going to start the series with a 5x7 and then use 4x6 for the other ones. They all go the same orientation. If some had went a different way, I might have chose a different type of layout, but since they all going the same way, I think this will work. And then I brought in Misty Moonlight. Now, that is not a color that is in the Cute as a Bug DSP, but there are flowers on Kinsley's dress, and I want to match them. I don't think I want to go as dark as Night of Navy, but I think this will pull out the blues in her dress, and I think it'll still go with all of those natural tones. So I am going to cut, I think 6x8 for the first mat. So I have a huge mat, big mat around the large picture, and then 4.5 by 6.5 for all of the other photos. And I'm going to stick those behind each photo, and I like that, but I think I might want a little more matting around these photos. So I brought in Petal Pink because that was a color in the paper pack. That one's a no. I don't like that, even though it's in her dress. And so then I brought in some basic white. You can never go wrong with black or white, right? So I'm going to cut this down to 5.5 by 7.5 and give that first photo a double matte. I really like that. And then I will go with the rest of these photos. I guess these are 4.25 by 6.25. The other ones must have been, I think I did 4.5 by 6.5 for the Misty Moonlight, and these I will trim down to 4.25 by 6.25. And I like that look, so I'm going to do that for all the photos. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these down with all of the layers. I like the smaller layers on the smaller pictures and the thicker layer on that largest picture. I feel like it really makes that largest picture pop. I do need to add an interactive element, and I know what I'm going to do. At the end, you're probably going to think, oh, she totally forgot, and that's why she added it this way. I did not forget. I wanted to show you a technique, but I also originally thought I would be adding it to the left of the large picture, and stay tuned to see where I actually added it, because I think it works with the whole title and theme at the end to add it someplace else. So I'm putting these all down and deciding on the placement, and then I'm going to bring in all those cute bugs. So I love, love, love this paper suite. I am featuring this Cute as a Bugs paper at a workshop, actually a all-day crop next weekend, and I wanted all of the girls to do this for the mystery envelope, so I had lots of ideas to share with my customers. And so I think if you catch the playlist at the end of this video, you'll get lots of inspiration for this Cute as a Bug paper pack. And you can also use the stamps and die cuts that come in Sweet as a Bug. I use the die cuts that coordinate with the paper and cut out a whole bunch of these little bugs that you're going to see in just a few minutes. So I'm deciding. I had some PML cards. I love the little stump, so I'm going to use that on the right, and I want to work in this little scene on the left. And you know, from the eyes of a child, they see things so different than we do. So I was kind of just thinking about, you know, she's in preschool, their imaginations just flourish at this age, and you wonder what they see when they go outside and the way that they see our world. And so that's kind of what I was wanting to play with in this whole layout and the concept that I was going with. So I'm going to lay out some of these and figure out how I'm going to use them. And I actually have another paper pack. So if you have more than one paper pack, you're going to see what I can do with having an extra paper pack and these cute little critters. And I think I'm going to line these all up. The ants, I had to go back and look at the picture at the actual paper and see what order they had the little ants. It probably didn't matter which order they were marching in, but I just thought they were adorable. And so I'm going to work with these, and then I actually took a picture of how I kind of had it laid out, and then I asked ChatGPT to help with some title ideas. And oh my goodness, when I uploaded this picture, it gave me lots of fun ideas. And I said I wanted something that was playful, and I was just thinking about her imagination, and it gave me some titles. And I asked my daughter, and she liked the idea of Where Imagination Blooms. And doesn't that just describe preschool? And these were her preschool pictures. So here I've taken this exact same little, I call it PML card, sorry, that's close to my heart language, Memories and More type card that you can cut out. And you have 2 sheets, so I guess you wouldn't need a second paper pack. I had to have one because I was sending out stuff to people. And I actually cut out a bunch of the little pieces of another card, just like this one on the bottom left. And I did that so that I could layer up all of these things. So once I have my title cut out from the Alphabet Alamo dies, and I cut those in garden green, then I was able to figure out the placement, and I knew I wanted it to be flush across the bottom all the way across. And I believe it was about 3¼ inches from the bottom. I left about a ½ inch from the edge on the left and right for the left-hand layout, and on the left side on the right-hand layout from the pictures to the edge about a ½ inch. And then in between the pictures, oh, it was probably closer to 3/8 of an inch in the middle of the picture. So I mimicked that same amount of space between the pictures on the left layout and the right side. And then I'm going to come in with all these little critters, and I am using up some dimensionals that are both from Close to My Heart and from Stampin' Up. I went through my stash this weekend and found out how much I had of foam tape. It was a lot, and all these little foam pieces, and then two-sided tape. Oh my goodness, I did not realize I had so much of that strong two-sided tape. I think they send them with our card kits, and that's how I ended up with so many. So I won't make you watch me layer up all of these, but I've even cut out the extra little bugs that did not have die cuts with them, and I am adding all of the little bugs and critters and different things across the whole layout. And then you're going to see now, those are all down. And I am coming in with what are called deer dots. I love these colors, and they match this paper suite so well. So I'm going to use them because do you see up in the top where the title is, I have woven in and out some flowers and some greenery. The die cuts for the greenery were from Hugs a Bloom dies. I think that came with, like it coordinated with some paper pumpkin packs. And I also used a Forever Florals dies. Those will be coming in the future. I got them early with a virtual card retreat, and that's where the flowers are. Those little white flowers are that are up in between all of those letters. And I just love these little blooms and flowers and sprigs. And so that's what I used up at the top. And I also used some of those leaves down at the bottom to soften the edges of those cards that I added on both the left and right. And I did bring in some of that old olive cardstock and then the two sides of garden green to cut all of the greenery that I put here and there. But I used those sprigs to soften the edges so that it wasn't a hard line for the 4x6 card and the 3x4 card, Memories and More type cards that were in the bottom two corners. And then after I've added some of this light blue and I guess it would be like cloud cover maybe and petal pink and real red between in the middle of those little flowers, then I came back and I was stash diving, I will admit, and Stampin' Up, please come out with something that's like our old, what do you call them, Bitty Sparkles. They are so tiny and perfect for the middle of these flowers. And don't you just love that little bee that's watering the flowers on the far right-hand side? I just love that. And I took those ladybug garden epoxy shapes and I put the ladybugs around the layout. I used the whole strip like what I sent to the girls. And then there were also like these clear dots. And I used those as water dots that could be coming out of that picture from that little bee on the right, and I put it on the flowers and on the leaves in that bottom right hand corner. You can't really see it yet, but I will do some close-ups at the very end of this video. I will zoom in on everything so you can see the layers that I put on the bugs and that you can see the embellishments. It just turned out adorable. You know how when you do one of those layouts and you get like all excited because it's way more than what you had in your mind and it turned out great? That's kind of how this one turned out. Okay, it's time to add that interactive element that was required of everybody. So I was going to put this on the far left. There just isn't really room, and there is some room on that far right. So I'm carefully cutting a slit with an X-Acto knife right even with the edge of that picture, and then I can tuck something in. Now this is the width of a random tag that I found in my scrap bin, and I'm going to take some copier paper. It does not need to be anything special. I just want to make sure it's not going to get caught on anything, and I don't know what layout's going to be behind this. So I am just going to glue around the outside, and then I want to give it like a stopping point too. So I'm going to glue this around where that tag will slide in, and none of the glue is touching that tag whatsoever. But when I turn it around, I'll be able to slide it in and out. And here is that little hidden journaling that I put on there. And I added a few dots here and there. So here's the final look of the whole layout. That tag pulls out. Can you see the dimension on all those little bugs and all those little blackberries? And there's those darling water drops on the flower. And then you can see close up all of those flowers that are blooming.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more crafty inspiration.